A man of many hats. He's been goal-driven even as a kid in Maryland. Okay, so he did not become Old Middle School South class president, but he did become NCAA Division I football player, a college graduate with a master's degree, an NFL football player, an Uber driver Jimmy Fallon was talking about, a hip-hop artist, and a January 2020 WWE signee who has already had a WrestleMania moment. There's more. This future Maryland or Florida governor, hint hint, is co-hosting the new A&E series WWE's Most Wanted Treasures, which premieres Sunday, April 18th at 10 p.m. on A&E. Thank you, co-host AJ Francis. Tell us about WWE's Most Wanted Treasures. It sounds like a really cool show. And how did you get the gig?
Honestly, a lot of times in the WWE, when you come from the NFL, people think that you're handed things, and people think that I was handed this job, but I actually got this gig because, not through WWE, because a friend of mine I went to high school with is a Hollywood actor named Tommy Williamson. He's on the ABC show, The Fosters, and he is friends with the associate producer for the show. They were just talking right when quarantine hit last year, and he was like, "Hey, you should check out my buddy. He just signed with WWE." She checked me out. She liked me. She pitched me to the production crew. They liked me. They pitched me to the network. It was cool, and then they pitched me to WWE, and WWE was like, "Well, we haven't done anything with it yet, so sure, why not?" And so that's how I got the gig. But honestly, that was a hell of an introduction you just gave me. I mean, I have had a pretty successful life, I suppose.
I'd say so, and it's still going strong.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like I was put on earth to host this show. The last 30 years of my life have been yes, I've done all those things that you named, but the entire time I was doing all of that, I was a giant WWE mark. I was a huge fan. When I first went to the NFL, people spend their money on cars and houses and, parties. And I went to 5 WrestleManias. So that's what I did when I got money with the NFL. So I feel like, the fact that I'm the host of the show is like me living out a childhood dream of being able to go around with Undertaker and Ric Flair and Booker T and all these legends and help them reclaim their legacy by helping them find, their long-lost items.
You mentioned 5 WrestleManias. I want to delve into the show, but I do want to ask you this. Does that include the one you appeared in, or is that 6 now?
Yeah, that one doesn't even include the one last year when I was in the 24/7 segment with Mojo and Gronk, which is funny because Mojo Rawley was my teammate in college, and Gronk was my teammate in the NFL. So it's funny that I got to be a part of their segment together. But no, that would actually technically be my 6th WrestleMania that I went to. So the first one I ever went to was WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans, which was, probably top 5 WrestleManias all time. And so it wasn't too bad to start on.
That is awesome. And yes, I was going to get into Mojo Rawley because I did do my research, AJ Francis. I saw when he played at Maryland and when you played at Maryland, and I was going to ask you about that. But I want to talk about the show. Here's the WWE's Most Wanted Treasures, co-hosted by WWE rookie AJ Francis on A&E, takes viewers on a journey to find some of WWE's most iconic lost memorabilia. So cool. In each of the 9 episodes, you get to experience and see the legends with AJ Francis. Investigate, negotiate, bid on memorabilia that you guys are finding. How does that process work? If you could give us it the short version, just how does that process work where you guys are finding this stuff and then trying to recapture it?
Well, honestly, a lot of the stuff is in the possession of other mega fans that are well known. All you got to do is really ask around in the collector network, because all the collectors know each other. It's a very small niche group of people that can spend thousands of dollars on wrestling items. So it's not the biggest have that, but I know somebody that has something close to that, and then we go to that collector's house. Sometimes the items themselves are with another wrestling legend because, you know, maybe in storyline they were best friends, but in real life they were. So they, you know, spend a lot of time together, and that's how they come across each other's stuff. You know, sometimes it's with the families of the legend. Sometimes it's lost and absolutely no one knows where it is. So we have to literally put on our Sherlock Holmes investigation suits and figure out where it could possibly be. Where was the last place it was seen? So there's a lot of different ways that we end up going through the searches, and that's what makes it cool because even though, you know, we have, you know, all the different legends that we're working with 9 different legends, it ends up being different every single week. Every single week the search is different, how we come across things, the people we run into. Sometimes I'm with the Legends tag team partner. Sometimes I'm with their child. So you never know what's going to happen. It's a great show.
Okay, AJ Francis, no Don Jardine alerts here, but I will ask you this. Was there one particular item that you all found that you were like, oh, that's the best of the best?
You know what's funny is the cool thing for me is a very good friend of mine has in his possession one of the oldest WWE rings in his, like, known in use today that WWE doesn't still own. And one of the cool things is because I was hosting the show, I was able to convince them to go and try to verify if this ring is in fact the ring that we think it is from way, way back, potentially, you know, early WrestleMania season times. But, you know, the problem is when you have so many different people that have come in contact with an item, and it's not just for in the sake of like the ring, it's with every item that we found, is that you end up having to go through 2 or 3, you end up having to go through more people to verify an item than you do to find the item. So it's a really unique process that I don't think a lot of people have ever considered for wrestling.
Hey, was the ring up and did you get to go in it?
The funny thing is I started my career in that ring.
Oh.
So, like, the funny thing is, like, when he would tell me, he was like, oh, this is a classic ring, you know, this is one of the oldest rings that we have. And I was like, yeah, okay, brother, whatever, man. Let me just take these terrible back bumps in this stiff ring. And then, you know, that's the cool thing is you get an opportunity to find out. Sometimes people aren't really aware of what they have in their possession, you know?
Oh, AJ, was that at the Team 3-Day Academy in Kissimmee, or was that elsewhere?
No, it was at elsewhere. It was at my buddy Mike Busey's house. Where I first started wrestling was SCW in Aspetulla, Florida. I had my first matches there in front of 50 people. So, you know, basically the same with COVID now, so nothing's really changed.
Oh my gosh. Well, AJ Francis, WWE Superstar in Trading, heads out on the road with some of the famous WWE legends and superstars like Undertaker, Ric Flair, Charlotte Flair, Mick Foley, Kane, Big Show. Listen to the lineup. Mark Henry, Jerry the King Lawler, Booker T, 5-time, 6-time champion, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Brutus Barber Beefcake, Jake the Snake Roberts, Sergeant Slaughter. It is so cool. I will ask you this, sir. Are you now the most famous person from Severn, Maryland?
I mean, other than Tony Braxton, I feel like I have to be, right? I gotta be. Like, she's got years of work that she's put in, but I feel like at this point, I got it.
I agree too. I would have to agree with you as well. Tony Braxton, great singer, but now AJ Francis, you've made your mark, and you're making a bigger mark now. And it's part of that mark. 3 months into your WWE career, here you are, WrestleMania. WrestleMania. 3 months into your career, WrestleMania, and you're in a spot with Gronk and your former University of Maryland Go Terrapins teammate Mojo Rawley. And just, you mentioned it before, but what was that whole experience like? And did it help that you were a big guy, 6'5", big guy. I'm hope 300 plus, I believe, because Big Gronk took that fall. I'm thinking they had some big guys down there to help catch him.
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm 6'5", 350, so I could have caught him by myself. But luckily, I had a lot of help because nobody really wants to have to catch a Gronk falling 10 feet, by himself. Not when not when all the bad things that can happen can go wrong. Gravity is the one equalizer of all of us. So the cool thing about that spot for me was, half an hour before I did it, I didn't know I was going to be doing it. That's the cool thing about WWE is they say, hey, can you get to the Performance Center? We want to do something for WrestleMania. And you're like, sure, absolutely, I'll be there in 10 minutes. So it's like, the cool thing about this business is you always have to be able to adapt. You always have to be able to perform on the moment. And that's exactly what the show was all about. Because I would go into scenes not having any idea what I was going to see or if the person would actually have what I was looking for and having to adapt on the fly.
You played college and pro football. You earned a master's degree in college. You're living another dream with WWE now. How proud is your dad, Mike?
Very. I mean, he calls me all the time. We talk all the time. My dad was always he's a famous coach back home in Maryland. He's the head football coach at Meade High School now. For many years, he was the head basketball coach at North County High School and Old Mill High School. And he spent a lot of time helping out the youth in our area. And, the cool thing for me is the fact that, he dedicated his whole life to sports, and I dedicated my whole life to sports. And because of him pushing me, at 12 years old, I knew I was going to go professional in sports. Thought it'd be the NBA, but it ended up being the NFL. And I was going to go to WWE. I would tell people that, and they thought I was crazy. They were like, hey, okay, whatever you say, bro. And my whole life, I knew I was going to do it. I believed in myself, and the reason I believed in myself is because my dad was like, man, you can do anything, for real. I say that to all the kids, but as far as being my son, you are capable of anything you put your mind to if you're willing to put the work in. And I ain't never been scared to work, and that's why I'm where I am today.
And it's amazing because that advice can help a youngster so much in achieving, making those accomplishments. And it's also interesting, was Dad, Mike, a pro wrestling fan?
Yeah, so the reason I started watching wrestling, but my dad is not the same level of wrestling fan I was. He grew up, watching the Chief J Strongbos and, all the wrestlers.
Bruno Sammartino and Pedro Morales and Ivan Koloff, Ivan Putski. That's my era, Polish Power.
and Superstar Billy Graham.
Oh.
Everybody, right? So when he grew up watching them, when I was born, he just put wrestling on for me. He put it on, and he loved Sergeant Slaughter, and I loved Hulk Hogan. And Hulk Hogan is the reason I started watching wrestling, and The Rock is the reason that I never stopped. I came in the Attitude Era was right when I was starting to understand what WWE really was. Understanding how it was entertainment. Understanding how it was entertainment. Understanding how the business worked itself, and I got to come into that knowledge right when DX and the NWO and Stone Cold and The Rock and all of these mega stars were on the top of their game. So I never looked back. And my dad, on the other hand, he doesn't watch it as much as he used to when I was a kid. But when I was a kid, he would watch all the pay-per-views with me. My grandfather would too. My papa loved The Undertaker. That was always his favorite guy. So it was wrestling has always been a family thing for us. And my Nana is 72 years old, and she still watches Monday Night Raw every week and texts me about it while it's on. And she loves Bobby Lashley.
And they're all going to be watching more because AJ Francis will be coming out of their screens. Well, can't wait for that to happen, and that'll be so cool. Hey, but I'll say this, your high school football career, it was interesting to me. You played at Gonzaga College Catholic High School in Washington, D.C. your dad was tremendous as a coach, I was reading, at Meade High School. Were you going to go play for your dad, or you just decided it was better just to go to that school?
Well, I'm about to throw the Anne Arundel County superintendent under the bus. But at the time, my dad was coaching at North County High School, and we lived in Old Mills District. And I had already been in Sports Illustrated for Kids, and I was really well known as an athlete in the area, even at that young of an age. So the superintendent decided that even though my dad was working and coaching at North County, that if I went to North County over the school district I was in, which was Old Mill, it would have been a, quote, athletic transfer. So my dad said, well, if he ain't going to play for me, he definitely ain't going to play against me. And that's when I started looking at going to private schools. And I ended up getting offered to go to Spalding and Mount St. Joe's and DeMatha and Gonzaga and all these different schools, and ended up deciding to go to Gonzaga. But truthfully, the only reason I didn't stay home and play for my dad is because the Anne Arundel County superintendent hated it.
It was more a political thing and all, which happens. But I'll say this: you mentioned DeMatha. What a great basketball school, DeMatha up there. I know that one.
Yep, and thankfully, my senior year, we actually beat DeMatha and ended up winning the conference championship. Ended up being number 4 in the country. But DeMatha has always been going way back to Adrian Dantley. Has always been, one of the greatest basketball schools in the country, let alone in the D.C. area. So that's one thing I'm grateful for, is like, when I got to college, I didn't feel as if it was a major step up in competition level, because when I was in high school, I was playing against guys that all met and D1 and played in the NFL, so it was like an easy transition for me as a freshman, which is probably why I started as a redshirt freshman.
That's amazing, and such good talent up in that area. We're going to wrap this up. We've got a couple more questions for you, and thank you so much, AJ. Hey, Mojo Rawley, Mr. Intensity, one of my favorites. I love Mojo. You got to play college ball with him at Maryland. Hey, was he a defensive lineman too?
Yes, so true story. My first day working out at the University of Maryland. So when I was in college, when I was in high school, my senior year, I got mono from drinking after one of my teammates' Gatorade bottles like a stupid idiot. And when I got to Maryland, my spleen was still overgrown, so I wasn't able to work out right away. So I missed the first 2.5 months of summer workouts. And then the week I came back was the week that everybody was, maxing, showing what their max was. So my first day in the gym, I've never cleaned before in my life, and I'm power cleaning like 185. Now, eventually, I ended up being able to power clean almost 400 pounds. So clearly, I got the technique down, but I had never power cleaned in my life. So I'm power cleaning like 185, and I'm done. And I watched all the guys max out, and Mojo was going up to do his max. And he has like 400 pounds on the bar. And it could have been more, it could have been less, but it was damn near 400 pounds. Not only does he power clean it, but then he presses it above his head. And I'm sitting there having just found out about an hour earlier that this is the guy that I'm behind on the depth chart. And I'm like, oh, I'm never going to play. and lo and behold, he was a redshirt senior, and I was a true freshman. And I spent the whole year getting redshirted, learning from the likes of him and the other we had like 6 senior D linemen that year. So I was like learning from all of them. And then, the next year I got the opportunity to start, and I was ready to play, and I was a freshman All-American. But playing with Mojo was crazy because on game day, he was a psychopath. He would get himself amped up to the point that he would like literally headbutt lockers. Like, people think that this like Mojo Rawley thing is like him being super energetic all the time is like a gimmick. No, that's just literally him. Like full on, 100%.
Oh, that's great. And we're going to wrap it up there. I'll give my final with the show coming up, but that is so awesome. You keep doing what you're doing, and it'll just continue successes for you because you work hard and you really want it, and it's just fun to see that development. Hey, we got to see you in South Florida with CCW. Got to see Alex Ocean take that big, huge jump off that huge ladder falling on top of you through a table. We got to see you at Sweetwater Pro. So you've made the rounds. You were at the Team 3D Academy with the Dudley boys training up there in Kissimmee. You've been around, sir, and we appreciate it in Florida. But I'll say this, we got WWE's Most Wanted Treasures. That'll be premiering Sunday, April 18th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on A&E. And that's going to follow the tremendous show Biography, the WWE series of Biography with all the legends. They'll be doing shows, documentaries on several of the legends. That'll be going on. That'll be sort of the pre-show for Most Wanted Treasures. It's just such a cool time. AJ, thank you so much for taking the time. All the best to you.
Thank you so much for having me, man.